What's up? How you doing? It's me back again, Analog Attack, and welcome to episode 4 of Piece of Maiden. Chris Corry's here again. How you doing, Chris?
All right, Mike.
Good to see you. So
You
what we're
too.
going to be tackling today? What's the year? The year is 2010.
2010. The
And
album is
oh, look at that. You've got the vinyl. I've got the little one.
it's very nice. It's cute.
Very cute. Yeah. So we'll talk about the reason why I don't have the vinyl of this a bit later when we get into the album a bit more. So as usual, let's have a little look at what was going on in metal in our year of choice. So 2010, what was going on in the world of heavy metal? Can you think of anything off the top of your head? It's a tough one, right? There was a lot of records released, but most of them not really in our area of interest.
We lost Ronnie James Dio. That's what I remember about 2010.
Okay, there you go. All right, I'll show you a few.
Yeah, what do you got?
And I'll look at your reaction. So, Immolation.
Okay.
Majesty and Decay. Good album, I think. Our old friends, High on Fire are back again.
There they are.
I think they'll be showing up a lot in this time period with
Yeah, their heyday.
Snakes of the Divine.
Uh-huh.
All the way from Greece. Rotting Christ.
Yeah.
Their epic double LP. You'll like this one, I think.
Okay.
Cathedral, The Guessing Game.
Oh, that's a weird one.
A prog masterpiece.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. Could be a little bit of connection with a record that we're going to be talking about today, maybe. Grand Magus, or Magus, came out with Hammer of the North.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about Grand Magus.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So, that came out 2010. Autopsy came out with The Tomb Within.
Dude.
EP.
Now that's a comeback album. Or it's an EP, but it's a comeback. It's quite a comeback.
Yeah, so this was also 2010. Enslaved came out with Axioma. Ethica.
These guys are always working. I feel like every year there's a new Enslaved album.
I think Enslaved and High on Fire will be...
They're on the same cycle.
They are, I think. And then finally, in December of 2010, Motorhead came out with...
The World Is Yours.
So this is what we're kind of up against.
Okay.
In that year.
All right.
Not too bad. So, yeah.
Well... So there's another Kevin Shirley production. Let's start there.
Okay.
And it was recorded. What is it? It's that studio down in Jamaica.
The Bahamas, right?
What's that?
It's in the Bahamas, right?
Yeah, the Bahamas. Where they did Power Slave and oh god, at least one other, right? Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so apparently the studio was like the exact same as it was. Like they said, like they walked in and it was like same broken door, like same carpeting, same everything.
Cool.
Which is like cool, but also like I don't know, like there's not really any huge difference between any of these Kevin Shirley produced records. They all kind of they vary a little, and one thing I noticed about this as opposed to the last Kevin Shirley record we talked about, which was Book of Souls, is it's a little bit punchier, like just like that much more, but just is a little bit of extra like oomph behind it or something like that. But I think that for some of the like the songs like The Alchemist, I guess that's probably like the fastest song on the record.
It is, yeah.
It gives it like just a little more energy.
Right.
But I don't like, I guess we'll get into this more as we keep going, but I don't really like, I don't even know how much like the guitar situation varies from album to album, because I assume it's mostly the same guitars, and what I can't really decode is how much of those guitars are played through amplifiers and how much of them are done through like expensive amp modeling software that's supposed to give you the exact sound of such and such and whatever.
We
And
touched on that with the Book of Souls episode. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's 3 guitars on this record.
well, there's that too. But just in terms of the sound, like I don't know if these guys just plug into the board essentially and just like punch up like Dave's amp sound on the computer and use that every time. I kind of get the feeling like that is what they do. Now I'm sure there's like some complicated thing like behind the scenes. They're like, no, we use all real amps, but somehow all these Kevin Shirley albums, the guitar sound basically ends up sounding the same.
Sounds a little synthetic to my ears a little bit.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm getting at is like it doesn't sound bad, but it always sounds a little bit plastic. But be that as it may, I think it sounds pretty good. And like I said, it's a little punchier than Book of Souls, which just it gives it a little bit more bite. Like that's the other thing. Like you can talk about all the different Martin Birch produced albums, and everyone has a sound.
Right.
And the Kevin Shirley records, it's really hard to, it's like they all sound professional, they all sound expensive, except the synths, which again sound terrible.
We'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah.
But other than that, like it's kind of like, it's almost like a later day Ramones thing where you're just like, I don't know which one is Too Tough to Die and which one is Brain Drain or I don't know what I mean. I assume you have a similar impression.
Yeah, in terms of the production, definitely. But at the time when it came out, it was their longest album, right? To date.
Yeah,
it was the longest.
Which is amazing to me because I feel like when we get to A Matter of Life and Death, that is going to feel like the longest album. And in my mind, I'm like, that's the longest one. But, we know that Book of Souls is 90 minutes or something.
Yeah, this is like just over 70, right? About 70, 72 minutes, something like that. But, so we don't a little look at the cover art.
Must I do?
Yes, you must. It's part of your job. You're obligated. We're obligated to talk about this.
I don't know. As I was saying to you before, I don't think this is Eddie. This is like his weird cousin or something.
Like, I want my Iron Maiden covers to have to be Eddie, a distinct Eddie. Even if it's like the Mayan Eddie or whatever, I want it to be Eddie. This doesn't look like Eddie at all.
Inside.
So they have my CD.
Inside of mine, I have these like. It looks like a James Cameron movie or something. Artistic.
But the guy that did it was Melvin Grant, right? And he's like, after Derek Riggs, he has like the second most Iron Maiden covers. He did.
I think he's responsible for a lot of their modern day artwork.
He did Death on the Road, which actually is not too bad, actually. And
it's okay.
From Fear to Eternity. He did the 10-inch of Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. He did that one too. So, and Fear of the Dark as well.
Oh, that's right. He is the Fear of the Dark.
Fear of the Dark was analog, and then he kind of moved into digital work later.
Yep, and you know what? I can tell.
Right? Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I hate this thing. This looks like something you see on the back of a pickup truck. It looks like the Punisher skull or something. Well, maybe you don't experience this, but here in the United States, a certain type of people who the lives that they think matter are the blue ones, and they have stuff like this on the back of their weird tactical pickup trucks. And I hate looking at this. This is not classy.
It looks a little bit similar to the Matter of Life and Death one too, like the kind of military one. It's kind of a little bit similar to that.
Yeah, and that's nothing to recommend it.
There you go. So that's that. So at the time, I'm not going to do this too often, but at the time, it actually got a lot of good reviews actually at the time, this album. And like Metal Hammer said, it was a demanding album, but one that most Maiden fans are going to absolutely adore. It got really good reviews, like in the metal press at the time.
I think the pendulum swung back because I think there was a lot of bad taste from A Matter of Life and Death.
Right.
Both because we'll talk about it eventually, but both because of the songs, but also because of the subsequent tour.
Right.
And oh boy. Yeah, looking at this thing, looking at these blood drops, that is just awful. All right, okay.
Yeah. And I don't like the color scheme and the yellow, and we could go on about it for a long time.
It's nice that it's colorful. It takes me back to well, really like all the Derek Riggs stuff was like, he used the whole palette.
Yeah.
There's like A Matter of Life and Death, like everything's brown. It's a total bummer to look at.
Yeah.
So that that's a good for them. That's nice.
Yeah.
Moving past the artwork though. I feel like also it came out maybe like at the time where like the new wave of traditional heavy metal thing was taking off. And I don't think that these guys would have even been aware of that.
Right.
But I think maybe just like if we're talking like the context of 2010, maybe people would have felt a little bit kinder to Maiden at that point. So, but I don't know.
What's kind of your relationship with this album? Did you buy it new?
Dude, no. I remember when it came out, I listened to a couple of tracks and I was like, it doesn't really sound that much like Iron Maiden to me. It's El Dorado was the single off it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a mid-paced, like just driving rock song.
Yeah, it's real. We'll get to that in a bit, but yeah.
I just, it left like no impression, and I kind of just tossed it off as not a very interesting album, just like they were going through the motions.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to say, I'll spoil it a little and say like, I can't get enough of this record. I've been listening to it for a couple months since we talked about first doing this, and I was like, well, Final Frontier is one of the ones that like I barely listened to. Like probably hadn't heard it all the way through. And I just kept playing it more and more to the point where I bought the record. When it originally came out, it was issued as these double picture discs.
Yeah.
So there's no way I would have bought that.
Well, that's what happened with me. So, we touched on it a bit, like, so after Book of Souls, that kind of like rekindled my passion for Iron Maiden. So this is one of the ones that I, went and I found it in a record store, and it was like the picture discs. Just sounds so bad. I mean, we're vinyl lovers, but honestly, I can't recommend any of these picture discs. I mean, picture discs, they never sound really good, but these in particular sound really, really bad. Like this run
was so long.
Yeah. And so I had it, and I never really got into it. I ended up selling it, and then I got like a Japanese CD and like a metal box, really nice looking. And I spent.
Did it have that skull and crossbones?
It's probably in there, but like it's like this metal box, and so I kind of tried to get into it again at that time, but I couldn't. But then as we started kind of plotting this episode, same as you, I kind of bought another like Japanese CD, and we'll kind of get to a little bit more in a minute. But I'm on board. I'm on board with this album, and I'm kind of like one of these guys. I do. Obviously, I'm a record guy, and I don't listen to music on the train or anything like that. But I tend to sometimes be a little bit distracted when I listen to music. Like I'm on the internet, even though I'm playing a record. But with this one, I really took time out to really, really kind of spend time with it and listen to it diligently, seriously, with no distractions. And it was a good exercise for me, kind of like really made me like concentrate and hone in. And I was won over, actually. So
I'm happy to hear that you did your research.
Yeah, I mean, I did really, really listen to it properly. There was a hurdle for me in this album. We'll get to it when we go through the songs, but yeah. But yeah.
Well, was the hurdle the intro music?
Actually, no, it wasn't. I kind of did say it was a little bit a few weeks ago, but I kind of warmed up to that pretty quickly, actually. So we want to go through the tracks already? You want to do that?
I think we can start at least breaking apart like sort of what works and what doesn't.
All right. So you're not a big fan of the intro, right? Satellite 15.
It's just much too long. It's
15 minutes.
4.5 minutes of like Ministry kind of stuff. But the thing that it got me thinking about was Bruce's solo records from the 90s.
Okay.
And in particular, Chemical Wedding and Accident of Birth. Those were still pretty much heavy metal records, but they had experimental 90s stuff kind of mixed in. People really like that Chemical Wedding record.
Right.
You know, and it is a really good record, but it got me thinking about Bruce's solo career, and then it got me thinking that a lot of this album kind of reminds me of that, but just with the 90s stuff kind of moved off it.
Right.
So I don't really like Satellite 15. It just goes on and on and on. It's like it sounds like a Guitar Center like demonstration for a pedal board.
Isn't it all just like Adrian Smith like
yeah, he programmed these drums and
yeah,
did all these like funky sounds on his guitar.
Yeah.
And
my kind of initial notes of that were kind of like Phil Collins drums like filtered through like a 90s like new metal disco or something like that was what I put initially, but which not
it's kind of a little bit like New Metal Rush or something like that.
Kind of. And I don't like the chugging guitars that are too heavy. It's like that kind of new metal, which Motorhead did too in the later era. They had like those kind of chuggy, I don't know, the chugging.
Chugging. Yeah, I know that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I don't like that. It doesn't suit Iron Maiden at all. So,
and that's the Chemical Wedding has some of those chugging guitars, but then it also has like a lot of the 90s Bruce stuff reminds me a bit of what Dio was doing in the later part of the 90s, like Angry Machines and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it's like it's good heavy metal, but there is like a strain of like very like 90s-esque stuff going through it.
Yeah.
Now once the actual first song kicks off, The Final Frontier, then it started to like crystallize for me. It's like I kind of think this is like this whole album is a lot like those Bruce solo albums, but just like if Maiden took like the basic framework and just like threw out the down-tuned guitars and just like made these like kind of straight ahead mid-paced like hard-edged heavy metal songs. And it kind of reminds me of like Dio on like Magica and Killing the Dragon though. And once I started to think about the whole album that way, it just kind of all started to fall in line for me. And I really like that first song. I mean, do you like the first song? I think it's one of the best.
I didn't at first. They're doing that thing where Bruce just repeats the title of the song for the chorus, but it's not a bad melody. It's not too bad. That one took a little bit of time to warm up to, but it's just a good heavy metal song, as you said. Like
I think the guitar riff, the sort of like the hook that is that riff is like really immediate and is like so again, to compare it to Book of Souls, Eternity Should Fail is like such a slow burn for the first song. Whereas like we do have to get through the first 4 minutes of, like Trent Reznor's Laptop or whatever. I actually like Trent Reznor, but once we get there, you just get like a good like fist pumping like hard rocker, and it feels good. It feels like the right way to start off an album like this.
Fair enough. Yeah, and then that goes into like El Dorado. I just said that was a single. That also is like has a kind of heavy metal riff.
And that I don't know why I didn't like it when it first came out. I think it's just because it's not really very Maiden-y. That's
it. Yeah.
Again, like as I listened, I was like, well, this could be like a Dio song with a tweak or two, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I was doing this a little bit in the chorus, and it has got a bit of a gallop to it, and I mean it's getting the blood pumping a little bit. So,
so I think that's a good start to the record.
It's good. They didn't do that thing where they come out of the gates and immediately they go into like a ballad, or they didn't do that. So bonus.
It's very appreciated, especially in this era of the band.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So for me, like I'm gonna lump these two songs together. I'm not sure what you're gonna say about them. So Mother of Mercy and Coming Home, those two songs were the hurdle for me, and I think back when I first bought the record, like I just couldn't get past those two songs, and because they're both really sort of slow and kind of, I don't know, but sat down, listened to them closely a few times, and they kind of won me over in the end. And Coming Home was one they played live too, which kind of surprised me. That was in the set at the time, I think.
Mother of Mercy. So Mother of Mercy, I think, has a really cloying, annoying melody that goes on in the hook, and it just goes on, and it's probably my least favorite song on the album.
Me too.
I'm kind of surprised it's so early in the album.
Yeah.
And it also, like, it sort of signals to you, like, at that point you're a third of the way through the record, and there hasn't really been anything above, like, if you're in a car, like, we haven't gone above third gear yet.
Right.
And I think, like, that's probably the point where I dropped off the album too when it initially came out. But again, this time I was just like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just a slower album, but like, what I want to explore this fully. And so, like,
me too, exactly.
Once I came to accept that, like, obviously you weren't gonna get, like, a Somewhere in Time or a Number of the Beast, in terms of, like, sort of speed and, like, some of the complexities and intricacies, and it's just going to be more of a riffer. I felt better about that.
Yeah,
but I do hate that song.
yeah,
I would cut
I
it.
mean, I can listen to it now. I don't skip it or anything, but I think it's
Coming Home. I like. I like Coming Home.
Okay.
It definitely sounds. It sounds like it should be like the theme to, like, a Thursday night drama on, like, like about, like, an airport or something like that. But something about it works for me. Something about it is fun. And it's also, like, it's built for the stage, right? Like, it's built for, like, a soccer stadium in Argentina.
Good point.
And I understand. And, like, so if you're talking about all the 2000 records, which we will eventually, and you're weighing, like, the soccer stadium, the South American soccer stadium ready songs, and there's one other in particular off this album that I would put in that category, and you're weighing it against, like, Blood Brothers or I'm blanking on a couple of the names.
No.
Well, yeah, I guess Fear of the Dark is sort of like one of those, but in the 2000s,
okay,
I'm thinking of Blood Brothers in particular, and I think this song is much better than that. I think it's less, I don't know, it's less cheesy. I mean, it is still very cheesy. It's about, like, flying a plane.
Yeah.
But somehow, I don't know, it works for me.
All right. And then we finally changed gears with The Alchemist, the speeder, the thrasher, you could almost say, in context of the album. Yannick Gur's song, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Only 4 minutes and 29 seconds long.
Definitely the shortest song on the record.
Yeah.
This is sort of the last before we get really into the deep water.
Yeah, but I like what happens after that song, though. It's time.
This song is cool. It sounds like a Konami video game from the 80s or something like that. It just has that, like, fast, like, like racing against time kind of feel. It's about John Dee, the occultist and alchemist of history, I guess.
Yeah. So earlier in the album, or does it fit well where it's placed at track 6? Would it work better earlier on?
So
is it kind of
it definitely could work earlier in the album, and that would maybe be more exciting. But it is like a nice little snack before dinner. It's a nice appetizer to what's coming.
Yeah.
And they didn't play that song live. I guess they already have so many fast songs to play live.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But it's a really good compact, and like, it's a real throwback. I was reading through some stuff, interviews with other musicians talking about the record, and I forget who was saying it, but they were kind of talking about how Adrian had, like, maybe gone back to more like Gary Moore kind of style guitar playing and strumming, and just hearing some of the stuff that they did. And again, I know this is like a little out of sequence, but when we do talk about Brave New World, them trying to recapture the 80s sound there, it doesn't quite hold together as well as this. And like, I could see this on Somewhere in Time. Like the production doesn't quite carry that here, but the actual, like the song itself, I could see this on there.
Right.
Definitely a great song.
Yeah. And then we kind of get to the last 5 songs, and this is where it gets, you really go on a journey with these final. They're all long songs, like they're all over 7 minutes.
Most of them are over 8 too.
Yeah, one's over 10 minutes long. But Isle of Avalon, what's your take on that song?
So cool. Really cool song.
Man, you know, like some people complain that, like, you know, these songs are too long and everything. There's like, I think it comes in around the middle. There's like the transition, that really proggy kind of transition that kind of reminds me a little bit of King Crimson a little bit.
About 4.5. I was gonna say Rush, but
Rush too, and it's not long enough.
That is the funny thing. You're like, what is that? Like, what just happened? And like, and
just as I'm really, really, really immersed in it, they change out of it back into the song. I'm like, you could have. It's one of those cases where they could have made it even longer and maybe cut some of the verses instead.
One of the things I like least about a lot of these later records is how long they'll ride on the quiet part before they kick into a loud part. And in this case, it's such an interesting melody that they just keep. It's like so circular, and it just keeps like pulling you back in again and again. And it's like, it really is something almost like a Seventh Son kind of thing, like some of those, like actually the song Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, in that cool down part, and it really like brings me back to that. And that's really cool, because they have no shortage of long songs over the last 20 years, and this one, it's not really that complex, I mean, compared to a lot of them, and it just, yeah, man, it's like totally captures me. I think it's great. And that, like, at that point, when I got to The Alchemist and I got to this song, I was all in for this album.
It's funny, we're having pretty much the same experience with this, I think. And it's a Smith Harris composition. But that transition in the middle, man. Is there a live version of that where they kind of jam out on that a little bit more?
I don't think so, actually.
I'd like to hear that or see that. But yeah, great song. And then we go into my favorite song on the album.
What makes this song for you, Starblind?
Oh man, okay, so it kind of starts off with the slow acoustic intro, which like a lot of these songs do, but it's really short, right? And then it just goes into this that opening riff, and it's got that just groove that had me like doing this like right off the bat, and it's it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and the chorus is amazing, and there's a little bluesy part in the middle too, which I really like, and these intricate like guitar work like throughout the song, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think that kind of driving groove is actually like the glue for this whole album. And like, if you're comfortable with the idea of hearing Bruce Dickinson just singing on like some really like hard driving medium speed like rockers, like I really think it's rewarding, man.
Oh man, I mean, I was really like that was one of those songs that I kept playing again, actually. Like once it was over, I kept like pressing, like going back on the CD and playing it again. It's a real like one of those. And I
think that's maybe Adrian in the guitar break. It sounds kind of like his playing style. That it gets harder for me to differentiate who's who. I can usually tell Yannick's solos and I can tell Dave's solos, and then by process of elimination I could figure out Adrian's, but who's playing what riffs gets tougher because everything so syncs together.
And even though it has like the kind of cheap synths that come in around the 8-minute mark, it doesn't spoil it really for me in the case of this song. It's a great song.
Yeah, man, I mean, it's so impressive, because a lot of times, well, most of these albums, the second half is kind of like where the album goes to die.
Right.
I mean, of the 2000s, I would
Yeah.
say 90s to present era, everything after the 80s.
Mm.
And that's not to say there's not good songs in the second half of a lot of these albums, but they tend to be front loaded.
Yeah.
And this one, it's almost like once you get over that hump of Mother of Mercy,
Yeah.
it's like you're just coasting, man. You're just like enjoying yourself.
I'm trying to think, man, they were confident about that song. I think they were confident that we're going to place this like kind of towards the
but they didn't play that one live.
I know.
When I was looking at it,
actually did kind of look that up because why not? It's such a good song. Just slow burner, mid-paced song, but it's got a lot of energy to it.
What about The Man Who Would Be King? That's the other one I would probably just cut.
Okay, that comes after the Talisman, right?
Yeah.
Which my initial notes were the intro is a little bit Jack Sparrow. You can imagine him on the gallows.
Iron Maiden's a little bit Jack Sparrow.
I know.
At
that
this
intro
point
in particular is especially Sparrow-esque, you might say. And it's got a similar vocal phrasing to Mother of Mercy a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we could cut those two.
Yeah.
And you'd have, let's see, it's so nice that LP actually has the times.
Yeah.
So that would we'd lose about 14 minutes from this thing. I guess it would still have to be a double LP.
So what do you think?
Or we could do the dead. What's that?
If cutting the Mother of Mercy, the Talisman, and the Man Who Would Be King.
Oh no, just Mother of Mercy and the Man Who Would Be King.
Okay.
I'd cut those two. I like the Talisman a lot.
Okay. All right. So you don't like the Man Who Would Be King? That's a Dave Murray composition. I thought it was okay, but like you can't hear the guitars at all, and it's got a lot of synth in it.
Did I skip the Talisman? Yeah, I kind of like breezed by that.
Okay, that doesn't matter. We know we don't like it very much.
So you don't like the When the Wild Wind Blows, do you?
No, I mean, obviously going back to the Argentinian stadium thing, but you know what? Apparently Nico McBrain said to Steve Harris, like when he first heard the song, he said it was it's the best song you've ever written, like since Hallowed Be Thy Name. That's what he said.
That's insane.
Yeah. I don't like the main like that sing-songy kind of folky, like Celtic that melody. I don't like it at all, unfortunately.
It's a bit Lord of the Rings, but
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I do enjoy the Lord of the Rings.
But it kind of
I'm okay with that. You know what? 11 minutes is probably a bit much.
Yeah, yes. I agree with you on that. It kind
of
I
would say
but
it's kind of the Brave New World formula. But I do think it sounds a little better than most of that album. And so I'm actually okay with it. So I'd put it down with the Talisman as sort of like we're not voting it off the island, but it's not our favorite either.
No, it's a little I sometimes that's actually one thing I have been doing is like yesterday I did I press stop after The Man Who Would Be King, but for the most part I've been listening to it like all the way through on a regular basis, and so Chris, did you see them on this tour? That's what I was going to ask you.
I did not.
Okay.
Because one reason was I saw them after this.
Right.
I think I was wary because I sort of alluded to it before, but when they went out for A Matter of Life and Death, they played the whole album.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
they did, and it was a scandal because it was before the time where maybe people always knew what they were paying for. So people showed up and got a show that was 2/3 songs they had never heard before, and not particularly good songs, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't even like this new album that much. Like I'm going to shell out money. I don't want to go see a show where I only know like 7 or 8 songs in like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. So
Um,
I've got the set list here. So they changed it quite a bit actually from 2010 to 2011. They mixed it up quite a bit. So 2010, Wicker Man, Ghost of Navigator, and this is weird, like Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, or Rothschild. That's a real crap. That's a real crapshoot for that one, isn't it? So then like,
yeah, it's like 50. You really win or you really lose.
yeah, El Dorado, Passchendaele, or Dance of Death, Reincarnation of Benjamin Breed, These Colors Don't Run, Blood Brothers, Wildest Dreams, No More Lies, Brave New World, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Running Free. That was a set list in 2010.
See,
Yeah.
that also maybe informs me that if I had any idea what the set list was, I wouldn't have wanted to go because that's very 2000s heavy.
Yeah. And then they changed it though. Going into 2011, they start putting more songs from this album and set. So they start off with the Satellite 15. I presume just the tape of it, right? And then the final frontier,
Yeah.
El Dorado, 2 Minutes to Midnight. There you go.
Okay.
Talisman, Coming Home, Dance of Death, The Trooper, Wicker Man, Blood Brothers, When the Wild Wind Blows, like right in the middle of the set almost. The Evil That Men Do, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Running Free. So
that seems like more of a conventional Iron Maiden set. Yeah, you know, they really try and push these albums, but like for instance, like the Book of Souls tour, you know, they focused on, you know, a good hour that I mean 6 songs off that album were in the set, but then they peppered it with 80s and 90s primarily besides that. Whereas like that first set list that you read me
that's one of the worst ones I've seen, I think, thinking about it. Except the whole,
you know, I just the longer I go on, the less I think of Brave New World, and we'll eventually discuss that.
Yeah. But you might change
but like that's very unsavory to me now.
You might change your mind. The thing about this, the 2011 thing, was that was when the huge earthquake and tsunami happened in Japan. And it happened like, it was actually on my birthday, like March 11th, and then March 12th, March 13th, both of the Iron Maiden dates in Tokyo were obviously cancelled, so they didn't make Japan that year. And then the next time, because of Corona, their gigs were cancelled too. So I wouldn't have gone and seen them in that 2011, but I had tickets to the 2020, which was the one where they did all it's like the greatest hits tour.
Yeah, well, so one nice thing that came out of the Matter of Life and Death situation was it's sort of, they now alternate where it's either a tour for the current album or they do a hits tour.
Yeah.
So the last one was Legacy of the Beast, which
yeah, that's it.
That was a really cool set list because they got 2 really good Blaze era songs in there.
I was really looking forward to that, having my tickets and everything. They were going to play in Osaka, kind of a little bit of a smaller place as well.
Oh wow,
it would have been cool, like a sumo like stadium.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, but I had an absolute blast at that show. I saw it at Madison Square Garden.
We'll get to that, won't we?
Yeah,
another time. But so let's sum up the album. Let's give it a score, a rating, whatever. I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, I'm gonna put it on par with Book of Souls because I don't think it doesn't have a song as good as Speed of Light or Death or Glory.
Yeah.
But it has more exciting surprises. Yes. And I think Book of Souls has like a section that sags for quite a while.
Right.
As much as I like the whole album, but I think this one keeps a better pace throughout. Like I like this album a lot now, and so I'm going to give it 7 questionably Eddie Space Monsters and also 1 skull in a punctured astronaut helmet. So that's a 7.5.
7.5. Okay.
Yeah.
What do we give Book of Souls? I think I gave it an 8, I think.
I gave it a 7.5.
Okay.
You were either 7 or 8. So
okay. I'm gonna give
7.5 for both from me.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 7. Just for we've talked about those couple of songs that they could have left off. But it's a great album. I'm glad I spent that time with it. It was very rewarding. And now I've got another Iron Maiden album in the collection that is becoming dearer to me. I'm going to keep listening to it for sure.
I feel like this is a victory for both of us.
I think so. Yeah. At 54 years of age, to sit down and listen to like a really long, like 2010 Iron Maiden album on compact disc and be won over by it, I feel like I've achieved something.
This is maybe the most Japanese thing you could do, in my opinion.
Yeah, you should have seen what I was doing when I was listening to it. I was sat on the floor, like drinking green tea, and like, no, I wasn't. But okay, that's all for today. It's been a great episode. Thanks for joining me again, Chris. Next time, we're going to be talking about.
Let's see, where are we at? Okay, so I got to look at the map, Mike.
Yeah.
Next time, we're talking about Number of the Beast.
No, that's going to be a good one, I think. So, everybody, please look forward to Number of the Beast. So, till next time, stay healthy and stay clean.